It's June the 17th, 2022, and our reading today in the book of Job is in chapter 32. So these three men stopped answering Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. But Elihu, son of Barachel the Buzite, of the family of Ram, became very angry with Job for justifying himself rather than God. He was also angry with the three friends because they had found no way to refute Job, and yet had condemned him. Now Elihu had waited before speaking to Job because they were older than he. But when he saw that the three men had nothing more to say, his anger was aroused. So Elihu, son of Barachel, the Buzite, said, I am young in years, and you are old. That's why I was fearful, not daring to tell you what I know. I thought age should speak, advanced years should teach wisdom. But it is the spirit in a man, the breath of the Almighty, that gives him understanding. It is not only the old who are wise, not only the aged who understand what is right. Therefore I say, listen to me. I too will tell you what I know. I waited while you spoke. I listened to your reasoning while you were searching for words. I gave you my full attention. But not one of you has proved Job wrong. None of you has answered his arguments. Do not say, we have found wisdom, let God refute him, not man. But Job has not marshaled his words against me, and I will not answer him with your arguments. They are dismayed and have no more to say. Words have failed them. Must I wait now that they are silent, now that they stand there with no reply? I too will have my say. I too will tell what I know. For I'm full of words, and the spirit within me compels me. Inside, I'm like bottled up wine, like new wineskins ready to burst. I must speak and find relief. I must open my lips and reply. I will show partiality to no one, nor will I flatter any man. For if I were skilled in flattery, my Maker would soon take me away. Amen. Well, Job is silent. His friends, the famous three friends, are silent. But now a very curious figure steps forward onto center stage, as it were. This angry young man, Elihu. Verses 1 to 5, we have a very brief intro, a sort of a bio. That's really all we know about him. And he's a very angry young man, isn't he? He's angry with Job. It says, for justifying himself rather than God. Well, is that accurate? Is that true that he's done that? We shall see. He's also very angry with the three friends because they weren't able to get under his skin. They weren't able to deal with him adequately, properly. And he doesn't like that either. And it's mostly them now that he addresses in this chapter, and then Job himself in the following chapters. And as he does so, he presents himself as a sort of a prophet, as if he is the one now who will have his say. Well, he'll certainly do that. But what he has to say is really what is needed to be said. He's bringing a prophetic word from God. That's how he presents himself. So verses 6 to 10, this prophetic word from God, of course, if it is that, will have authority. He's only a young man, verse 6, and he mentions that a number of times. He's obviously a bit sensitive about that. That's why with these three friends of Job, he calls them aged or older men. Again, who knows exactly what that means, but they're older than him anyway. And I think in that society, he would have given them honor and respect. So he keeps to the back of the crowd a bit. He keeps his head low. He's silent. He knows exactly what's been going on. That's obvious. And really, what he's expecting from these older men, you'd expect them to be wise, the wisdom of age. Verse 7, I thought age should speak, advanced years should teach wisdom. You expect older people to be more wise. They've had more experience in life. But older people can be very disappointing. And they can be surprisingly foolish if you don't learn from your experience. If you're not open to new ideas, remember how the three friends, they just keep trotting out what they've always thought, what they've always believed. They didn't give it much thought. They just assumed that's the way life was. And that's why they couldn't understand what Job was going through and even treated him rather shabbily along the way. Their traditional religious views are empty and useless. What is needed? Verse 8. What is needed is another supernatural source of wisdom, the spirit in a man, the breath of the Almighty that gives him understanding. That's what is needed in this situation. A word from God. That will help us to understand. Verse 9. And he says that's precisely what he's got. So listen to me, he says. Verse 10. I too will tell you what I know. Verses 11 to 16. If indeed he is a real prophet from God, if he brings a word from God, then what he says will not only have authority, it will come with a sense of necessity. Job needs this. These three friends need this. We need it to understand what's going on. He's been patiently waiting, he goes on to say, but he's been very disappointed by these older men. He goes on to say that in no uncertain terms. But now he's here, and he plunges into it with something fresh, something new. True wisdom, divine wisdom. Doesn't this sound a little bit like other passages, even in the New Testament, like 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and 2? The Jews, they look for signs and wonders, miracles. The Greeks, they want philosophy, intellectual reason and brilliance. Paul doesn't give them either of those things because that's human wisdom. That's the wisdom of this world. He brings the wisdom which comes from God, the wisdom of the Spirit, the wisdom of Christ crucified, the power and the wisdom of God. A truly prophetic word from God. It has authority, necessity, and urgency. That's how the passage ends, verses 17 to 22. You get a sense of this, don't you, with this young man? He's overwhelmed by the urgent need for this. And he's, again, reflecting on the spirit within me, verse 18. For I'm full of words, the spirit within me compels me. Inside I'm like bottled up wine, like new wineskins ready to burst. He has this prophetic word by the prophetic spirit. It's got to happen now. And of course, in the following chapters, that's exactly what we'll have. Traditional religion, empty, useless. Those old men. God must step into the arena now. he must speak. And he's going to do it through me. He's an interesting character, Elihu. I wonder what we will really make of him in the coming chapters, but he's often neglected. People often forget there's a fourth counselor, not really a personal friend, but if he isn't that, what is he? Well, there's an element of mystery and curiosity around this man. But can God use him and speak through him? Christopher Ash says in these messages from Elihu, God speaks, and he speaks to save. Listen to what he says, and he reflects on chapter 33 as well, so it'll prepare us for that. The core of Elihu's first speech is that God does speak. It is the silence of God that has troubled Job so deeply. Elihu comes to Job's comforters and tells them of the voice of prophecy, which will be the God-given and necessary voice to shed light on Job's sufferings. And he comes to Job and tells him of the voices of conscience and of suffering by which God speaks to save. By implication, he calls upon Job to listen to the voice of God coming to him in and through his sufferings, and to let this voice do its gracious work of preserving Job from pride. Job needs to be humbled under the mighty hand of God. By grace, he will be so humbled, but not just yet. That's where we're going at the end of the book. But there's this painful process through suffering, through providence, and through this prophetic word, through this angry young man, Elihu.